Tonight is a second installment of a series that will be 5 messages long, and it's in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And by the end of the 5th message, we will have read the whole of the 17th chapter. But my suggestion would be, if you want to get more from the series, that you go home tonight, if you have not already, and read the whole 17th chapter of 1 Samuel. And prepare your heart for all that we will learn. Last week, first 6 principles. Giants are a matter of perspective. And I'll certainly not re-preach last week's lesson, but the important thing is that we realize just because it's not difficult for you doesn't mean that it's not difficult for others. Just because you can overcome it doesn't mean everyone overcomes with ease. So pay close attention to the fact that we are all different, and giants come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and they come at us from all directions. The second principle last week were giants seem bigger when you're not close to God. Anything that comes between you and God will be closer and more visible to you than God will. And if you allow your problems, your giants, your circumstances to hide God, then you're facing the enemy alone. Giants are intimidating. There is nothing easy about heart difficulty, cancer, divorce, prodigal children, all the giants in the world. There's nothing easy about that. It's very intimidating. It's frightening. It scares us. And fear is contagious. You and I need to spend time with people who pray, people who trust God, people who believe God is able. We need to spend time with those who can lead us into the victory march. And that's not to say not turn to others and try to help, but be careful. Hang out with winners. Champions, that's who we're supposed to be. Giants don't leave on their own. We sometimes think, if I'll just not think about it, if I'll stick my head in the sand, if I will just pretend it's not true. Giants will not leave on their own. Your problem, your hang-up, your secret place, your stronghold is not leaving unless driven out by the power of the Holy Spirit. And the last thing I said last week was, this might be your day. 40 is a big number with God. Noah, 40. Moses, 40. It's a big number with God. And on the 41st day, the giant fell. Israel gained victory after listening to the humiliating remarks of Goliath for 40 days, day 41. What if it was day 41 for somebody here tonight? What if this was your hour of power and your day of victory? Tonight I'm reading verses 17 and following. Jesse said to David his son, "Take for your brothers an ephod of this parched grain and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp to your brothers. Also, take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000, and see if your brothers are well, and bring some token from them." Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and he left the sheep with the keeper, and he took the provisions and went, as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle line, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage and ran to the ranks and went and greeted his brothers, and he talked with them. Behold, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath his name, came up and out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were very much afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who's come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and will give him his daughter and make his house free in Israel. And David said to the men who stood by, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach of Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in the same way, so shall it be done to the man who kills him. I have had the privilege of standing in the valley of Elah on a number of occasions. It is quite serene to look around and see that on the east side, Israel would have been camped. On the west side, the Philistines would have come up the Mediterranean Sea and crossed over a little below what we know as Tel Aviv. And they stood on the other side of the valley. And every day, the giant would come down from the west side and would come near the valley and would shout out, if any one of you has the courage to war, to fight with me, to contend in battle, and you defeat me, we will give up. We will be your slaves and your servants. But if I win the battle, Israel will lay down arms and become our slaves and our servants. And the nation of Israel, the army of Israel, the king of Israel, fainted and trembled in the presence of this giant Goliath. Because giants are intimidating, you know. Because giants seem bigger when you don't have your focus upon God, because fear is contagious, and one soldier to the next. And by the time they had stopped talking about the fear of the morning, the faith of the morning had long since been gone. Principle number 7. God often uses unlikely heroes at unexpected moments to defeat life's giants. God often uses unlikely heroes at unexpected moments to defeat life's giants. How old do you have to be to fight a giant? Well, no age limit, nor size. Nothing like that is placed upon the man who will stand against Goliath. But you have to admit, Saul stood shoulders above most of the soldiers, and all of the army of Israel was arrayed in armor, ready to go to battle. And one young man, a teenager, basically a pizza delivery boy, is bringing food to his brothers and sees what's going on and hears what is happening and says, this cannot be so. He cannot defy the God of Israel. God is about to use an unlikely hero at an unexpected time to defeat the giant that all of the army of Israel is unwilling to fight. God uses little things and they become big. He uses small things and they become large. Out of the mouth of babes, His glory is praised and perfected. God uses us in our weakness and our inabilities. Many of us could recount a time in our past where God came along at the right time and used us in a way we could have never accomplished the outcome had it not been for the presence and power of God. David had already destroyed a lion that tried to come into the camp and steal the sheep. And he'd already killed a bear that tried to come into the camp and steal a sheep. And he simply said, if God used me, delivered me in that set of circumstances, my God is still the same, and He will use me now. This day was actually no different than any other day. And I would imagine by 40 days, the soldiers got up, got dressed, stood in line, and waited for the sun to go down. Another day of defeat. Are you living that kind of life? Same old, same old. Another day of not winning but losing. Another day of feeling overwhelmed and overcome. Another day when it does not seem as bright and light as you want it to. This could be your day, because this day that seemed no different than the first 40 days is the day when victory will come to the house of Israel. Number 8, others may not believe in your ability to defeat the giant, but fight anyway. You do not have to have the crowd, because the crowd is fearful. They're standing around hoping something happens, but they're not causing it to happen. And let me just tell you, and I don't mean to be offensive, it's good when encouraging friends come along. It is good when you have a man or a woman or a friend that will pray with you. It's good to be embraced by those who will walk with you during difficult times. But you don't need them nearly so much as you need Him, because He is the source of your victory. He is the defeat of your enemy. He is the absolute reason why victory exists. Jesse just sent David to take a few groceries and get a souvenir and come back home and say, this is how the war is going. His brothers, we'll save some of that for next week, but his brothers, when they hear that David is there, they say things like, well, who did you leave the little flock of sheep with? Or what are you doing here? You're just here out of curiosity. His brothers certainly don't support him. And then there's Saul. Saul's the king. Saul is the man Israel clamored for, saying, we want to be like everybody else. We want a king. And God gave them a king, and they became like everybody else. Be careful who you ask for. David's confidence was not in Jesse, his father. It was not in Eliab, his eldest brother. It was not in the powerless army that stood trembling before the giant. It was not in Saul, who, by the way, ought to have been leading in the battle. David's confidence was in God. The battle belongs to the Lord. No matter what everybody else thinks about your ability to fight, fight anyway, because God is your helper. He's your resource. He's your refuge. Number 9, I want to camp here for a moment, or at least I want you to realize that this is probably the most urgent thought of the evening. The longer you allow your giant to remain, the more intimidating he becomes. Let me show you what I mean. A tiny fire can be put out with a glass of water, but a house fire needs the fire department. And the fires that we see in western states need a great deal more than that. The longer it burns, the greater destruction it causes. And some of you, so afraid to face your giant, do not realize that the longer you let him stay, the harder he's going to be to deal with. The habit of last week and last month, if it's not broken, it will be even a bigger issue next week and next month. Just recognize we must deal with our giants now. Well, Brother Don, I don't think this would be a good day for me to do that. Yesterday was a good day, and today is even a better day because you did not do it yesterday. Some have allowed your giants just to move in. I remember reading about a family who sold their house to another family, and the other family showed up with furniture and clothes and all that, and the family said, you'll need to hang all those in the back. We're keeping this section here. Listen, when you sell out, you move out. And whoever buys occupies. But what we're dealing with now is some have let your giant get so comfortable that he's taken root, he's taken over, he becomes what scriptures call a stronghold. And only the power and presence of the Holy Spirit can tear down a stronghold. The longer you put up with this, the harder it is to deal with. Do it now. Number 10. You will face your giant only when you realize the cost of allowing him to stay. You understand what I'm saying? Brother Don, it might cost me to fight my giant. What's it going to cost you to not fight your giant? What's it going to cost you if your giant ruins and runs your life? It's going to be hard. How hard is it going to be if your giant is in control? I'm scared. How scared are you going to be if you have to live in an environment that is controlled by a habit or a relationship or a circumstance that the child of God has no business being in? Listen, they were asking the wrong question. What's the man going to get who defeats the giant? Oh, he's going to get gold and silver and he's going to marry the king's daughter. That's the wrong question. What's going to happen to Israel if we don't defeat the giant? That's the question. Not how rich are you going to get if you fight the giant, how poor are you going to be if you don't. Not how victorious if you win, how broken and battered and bruised if you don't fight the giant. God help us to get it right. It cost to let the giant live. Number 11, others may question your motive for fighting the giant. Fight anyway. When we get to it, in verse 28, which is next week, Eliab, his eldest brother, is going to say, in anger, why have you come down here? Why have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart. Now, I'm going to explain that to you. I'm going to explain it to you so you understand it. The reason a whole bunch of folks don't support you is because they're fighting the same giant you're fighting. And they haven't had the courage to deal with it either. They don't want you to progress beyond where they are. They don't want you to be the champion and them to be embattled and bruised and battered. They don't want somebody else to get the attention. They assume that your motive is just as evil as theirs. They don't get it. David was not there to win a trophy. David was there because he said they are defying the God of Israel, and this cannot happen. But you're going to have opposition. Anytime you take a stand, you're going to have opposition. As a pastor, when a serious stand is taken, you will have opposition. You don't know because we don't say how many times we have to defend, thus saith the Lord, from people who want us to just give a little, just change a little. But dear church, if you give a little this week, you give more next week. If you ever cross the line, it becomes difficult to come back. Make sure that even if people question your motive, you fight anyway. And verse 28, probably should have read it, but it's in next week. Eliab's been watching for 40 days. He has absolutely no right to judge David. When you have done nothing to deal with your giant, you have no right to criticize others for not having dealt with theirs. And then I'm going to close with this one. Be sure you're fighting the right giant. Here's what I mean by that. If I'd have been one of the soldiers, I'd have been saying, why in the world is Saul not leading us to victory? If I'd have been one of the soldiers, I'd have been a little bit upset at Saul. He's the king. He should have commanded and demanded out of us a warlike situation. In fact, he ought to be over there fighting the battle. He's our king. They could have blamed Jesse. That's David's father. He sent the young teenage boy to the battleground. Could have blamed the brothers while they're criticizing the very young man that's about to do something they didn't have the courage to do. You can fight anybody when you're embattled. You can get mad at God. Some of us might be tonight. You can get mad at the pastor. That happens too. You can get mad at one another. And that happens. And churches split over foolishness and silliness of sinful man not being able to get along in the energy of the flesh. Make sure you're fighting the right giant. We don't war with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities and evilness in high places. I am not your enemy, and you are not mine. And none here are anyone else's enemy that's here. Our enemy is Satan, and he alone deserves our full attention and focus that we might fight the good fight of faith. But alas, not just here, but in so many places, we stand around in our full armor and discuss the issues and think about what it would be like to wear the victor's crown. But we don't realize as long as Goliath cries out every day, then the next day is not going to be any different than this day. And folks, I just want to close, and I want you guys from Renewal and you ladies from Harbor Home, and I want all my members to hear this tonight. If you don't take a stand, then you're going to fall. If you don't muster the courage to trust God and fight the giant, then tomorrow's not going to be any different from today, unless perhaps it's worse. But quit swinging at the air and the people around you. Lay your burdens aside and lay your bitterness aside and trust in God and fight the right giant. If all of Israel would have rushed Goliath, the Philistines would have run. But not a man, just a boy. Not a king, just a shepherd. Just a little boy who's unexpected defeats a giant in an unlikely way. Well, Pastor, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just not trained well enough. David couldn't wear the army of the soldier. He couldn't wear the armor of those who were ready to fight. He had a few rocks and a slingshot and a God who is able. And that's all he had. That's all he needed. Let's stand. So let's get serious tonight. If you're facing a giant, you don't have to tell us who it is, what it is. If you're facing a giant, there's an altar where you ought to
Thank you so
praying.
much for joining us for worship
There's
online.
a pastor
If you're in
who
the
will be
Conway
glad to
area,
pray
we
with
want to
you.
invite you to join us on
These
Sunday
next
mornings
few
at
moments.
8:30 and 11 a.m.
It's
You
time
can also join us each
to face
Wednesday
the giant.
evening at 6:30 p.m.
All
If you
right,
have a
come
kid
stand.
in nursery through middle school, we want to invite them to midweek each Wednesday evening at 6:15. If you have a student in junior high or high school, you can connect with our student ministry at 5 p.m. each Sunday evening. And if you're 18 to 25 years old, we want to encourage you to join us Wednesday night at 7 p.m. for our college and young adult ministry. You can get more information about all these ministries on our website at conwaycentralchurch.org. Thanks for worshiping with us online, and we hope to see you again soon.